All right, welcome back to Do It Myself Garage. I'm going to do a few finishing touches on the engine. I want to get the exhaust manifolds fitted. There's a little bit of problem with some bracketing on the backside, and I didn't put my spark plugs in yet. So let's get started on this. All right, I know there's going to be a lot of people have different preferences and choices out there. I went with NGK. I went with the number 7 heat range. I want to try to keep it cooler. I do have cast iron heads still. I'm gapping them to 45 thousandths because I have an HEI ignition. These are not the correct bolts. I'm just putting them up here so I can measure some depths. And it's a little easier if it's hanging on here. Come on, maybe. That way I know what length my bolts are. And, yeah, awesome. I wish I had a longer one to go in a different spot, but no. Hey, got more than 2 threads in there. Got more than 2 threads in, I'm happy. No hole here. So I'm going to have 1 bolt, 2 bolts, 3 bolts, and then no hole here either. So I'll have 3 bolts on this side. And unfortunately with the Ram Air, it's about as good as you get on the driver's side. But these things are beefy. They'll be just fine. These heads do not have the end holes. Now, the option would be a bracket to come from here to pull. And the same thing over here. There's holes on the end of the block. The bracket would have to go under this holder right here. Would have to come down, do the same thing, and pull it back up. But I'm not too worried about that because there's actually a bolt in each boss. On the other side, however, I'll show you my dilemma. So there's no hole here. And the way that the Ram Air 3 exhaust manifolds are, it blocks this bolt hole. So you can't get any bolts on this end. You get 2 bolts down here, 1 in each of these, but you can't get any bolts down here. This hole right here, if I were to drill this, it would drill right into that. And you'd maybe, well, I guess maybe you get a good 1/2 inch in there. Oh no, you get less than that because of this bolt. I remember that now. So this bolt goes down and holds the head on. So you've got just no threads. So what I'm planning on doing is running a bolt. Let's see, okay, I got the camera at a good angle here. I'm gonna run a plate here, and it's gonna hook around and have a jack bolt. They already make these for other cars. It's gonna come down here and bolt in here, and it's just going to pull up on the exhaust manifold. They are pretty robust exhaust manifolds, but you definitely want to have a bolt, 1 on each boss at least. So I think if I put that bracket here and pinch that, that'll be fine. It doesn't take a lot of force, but you got to have some. There is some pressure to that exhaust coming out. Okay, I got her mocked up on there. Found a couple of bolts that would work, so at least I could hold it in place. Okay, so I took a piece of flat stock that I had, heated it up, got about a 60-degree bend out of it, 45, I'm not sure. But at any rate, over here, my plan is, if I can get you focused in here, right? I'm trying to do this. So anyway, my plan is I'm gonna take this bolt out. It actually goes all the way through, so I have a lot of options for length here. I'm gonna drill a hole in this plate, and then I'm going to put a drill and tap a hole in this piece up here, and then I'll use that to push up onto the exhaust manifold. I'm already going to have 2 bolts down here further. I'm hoping that'll be enough to get me by. Plenty of threads. Yeah. The bolt I had in there was a little bit on the long side as it was. So, looks like I might want to notch a little bit out right here. Nah, I think I'm going to leave it for now. Let's see what we get. Yeah, I only have an inch here. I know that this thing is 2 inches thick, so I'm going to have to put a bigger bend than that. So let's go heat up the torch, put a little bit bigger bend than that. All right, it's not the prettiest, and I'm not sure if it's going to work, so I'm not going to do any more work to it. So I've got my bolt here. I've got my piece that's bent. This ended up being a piece of titanium that I picked up. My work was throwing away a bunch of material that didn't have material certs. So apparently this is a piece of titanium strap. I'm lucky I was able to bend it as much as I was. Well, what happened is the bend wasn't quite far enough. And it actually worked out. I got my metal gasket in here, and I've got it all bolted up. And I took a socket, a 3/8 socket that would the bolt would fit through, and I ground it down, put it in behind, so it's still holding this piece in place, and it's pushing because I used a flanged bolt. It's pushing on this, but because the angle's wrong, it's actually pinching it in here really, really well. These two bolts on the other end located it really well, and then this piece here is pushing up on it. I'm hoping that's going to work. I tried to drill and tap this. I was able to drill it, but tapping titanium without the proper tools is quite difficult. So I got the hole in here, but I couldn't get the threads in it. So I'm hoping just pinching it is going to work. If it doesn't, I'll take the plate off. I'll take this somewhere and get this drilled and tapped, or I'll make it out of a piece of plate steel, but at least I have an idea of what to do, and then I can always trim this up. But I'm going to leave it for now just to see if it works. Not that much force is actually required to keep this seated. This metal gasket is the kind where it's got the little embossment on it. So when you press it down, it makes a pretty good seal. So I'm hoping that holds. So let's go on to our next project. I'm not sure what it is today. I gotta go check my list, but let's get on to something else and get this one step closer to putting in the car. All right, another day out in the garage. So it's a good idea, at least I found on mine. Take these mounts and make sure this bolt starts. Because on mine, this piece here was bent a little bit and the bolt wouldn't start. You don't want to be fighting that once it's already in the car. So make sure that your bolt actually starts in there. Like I say, I had to tweak this a little bit. All right, so these mounts can be really easy to get kind of confused which way they go. In fact, I had to look it up just to make sure myself. And this bolt goes to the back of the engine because that's where you have room to run the bolt in from the front to go into the engine mount. And then, well, what set of holes do you put it in? Well, what's nice, if you order the mount that goes onto the car, it'll only fit on the engine in one place on the Pontiacs. Now, this engine has 1, 2, 3, 4 holes in it. Later models had like 5. Well, actually, there's a hole up here. There's all kinds of engine mount holes for different years. 69 and older will, I believe, only have the 2. And since this block is 70, it has a couple more. All right, let's try this again with the right bolt size. I can't believe I had the wrong size bolt. And I double checked the length on these. That's why I have a washer on here. With any luck, I won't bottom out. There we go. All right, battery went dead right before I got them tight, so those are torqued down now. I'm just gonna go around and do the other side. All right, let's see what else we can get done today. Got the other side on now as well. One of the things I wanted to show you here is that the dipstick tube does clear those manifolds. And I had already checked that before when I was putting the dipstick tube in. I had mocked up the manifold on this side just to make sure. But in case you're wondering, as long as you run it as close to the block as you can, the dipstick tube, mine's touching the exhaust manifold just a little bit, but that'll be fine. But it does fit. Alright, so I just bolted the starter up. I had my shims. It's a starter that came with the car, but it's been working really good, so we'll give her a chance. I went ahead and ordered, there's a heat shield for in here, because before, with the other exhaust, it came to the same spot, but I think it's actually thicker and closer. So I bought a heat shield to hopefully not heat sink my solenoid. Otherwise, I know these cars have kind of a hard time starting if this thing gets too hot and gets heat soaked. So engine mounts are on and torqued, starters on and torqued, manifolds are on and torqued. I put the spark plugs in it. I gapped them, just put them in it. I didn't even run them down all the way because I'm going to shoot some oil in there before I crank it over. I took the wires off. My plan for running the wires, I read some stuff online, and they said that the tube that normally goes down in here just won't work. 1, 3, 5. It normally goes between 5 and 7 here. It goes right in here. And there's a little tube. And that's just not going to work. This exhaust manifold's a lot thicker, and there's just no space in between. So I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to get a piece of conduit and flare it so it doesn't rub. Get a piece of conduit, run it up. I think I'll run it down under the engine mount by the oil pan and then up over here. So I'll wait on that for. I know not everybody's gotten to see the top part of the engine here, but I did go with roller rockers. I have a roller cam. It's a really mild cam, less than 500 lift. So I've still got the press-in studs. Should be fine because I didn't up my spring pressure. I've got an Edelbrock 750 carb that I had on here when I bought the car, and it was running terrible, so I threw a 750 on it just so I could drive it for the year. I've got the phenolic spacer here because I needed room for the oil lines on the other side. My alternator, I upgraded that to internally regulated, so I didn't have to mess with the regulator. I replaced, if you watch my previous videos, I replaced the dipstick tube. Everything fit just fine. This is the original dipstick, but I replaced the tube. I got it from Butler Performance. This is an electric choke. I redid the fuel lines. I got an inline filter. I don't have anything this tightened yet. Oh, actually, no, I did tighten that down. I got the fuel line run down to my new fuel pump. I still haven't attached that, though. I find little stuff here and there that I haven't quite finished. I got a fuel line here that I didn't quite tighten up yet. But she's coming along. I just wanted, in case some people hadn't seen it, take the cover off of it. But that's where we're at for right now. I'll put the cover back on, and we're getting that much closer to being able to have this thing back on the road. All right, then we're going to call that a video for the week. Appreciate everybody following along. We're getting there. This engine's going to go in the car really, really soon. We've got a few things to button up, and we'll be there. I have to work out, get someone to come help me actually get the engine in. I could possibly do it by myself, but it's nice to have an extra hand to make it a little bit easier. Thanks for following along, sharing, subscribing, all that great stuff. And again, hopefully this encourages you that maybe you could get some of this stuff done yourself. It's definitely not a how-to. I do stuff wrong all the time, but that's okay. You know, research stuff, make sure that you're not making big mistakes, and you'll be fine. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. See you in the next video.